When we talk about how a man's brain picks his dream woman, we're not talking about fairy tales, destiny, or some magical spark that appears out of nowhere. We are talking about a complex psychological process shaped by biology, childhood, experiences, culture, memory, hormones, attachment patterns, and personal identity. The idea of a dream woman is not random. It is a mental construction built slowly over time, often without conscious awareness. Attraction, compatibility, status, familiarity, and emotional resonance. The brain is constantly scanning for patterns that match its internal blueprint of what feels rewarding and meaningful. From an evolutionary perspective, the male brain evolved to assess certain signals that historically increased survival and reproductive success. And body language are processed extremely quickly, often within milliseconds. These rapid judgments occur in the limbic system, particularly the amygdala, which evaluates emotional significance. Evaluates long-term compatibility, shared values, intelligence, and social alignment. This means that when a man feels drawn to a woman, it is not just about physical attraction. His brain is conducting a silent, multi-layered analysis. Does she feel safe? Does she align with my goals? Does she reflect status? Does she trigger? Familiarity? Does she challenge me? Does she calm me? The development of this internal dream woman template often begins in childhood. Early experiences with caregivers, especially the mother or primary female caregiver, shape attachment style. If a boy grows up with a nurturing, emotionally available mother, his brain associates closeness with safety. As an adult, he may gravitate toward women who are warm, emotionally expressive, and consistent. If, however, his early attachment was unpredictable, distant, or critical, his brain may unconsciously equate love with anxiety, distance, or the need to prove himself. In that case, he may feel intense attraction toward women who are emotionally unavailable or inconsistent, because his nervous system has learned that this dynamic feels familiar, even if it is painful. This is why attraction is not always logical. Many men say, "I don't know why I like her. She just feels different." What they are describing is often a subconscious recognition of familiarity. The brain prefers what it knows, even when what it knows is unhealthy. This is called repetition. Compulsion in psychology. We are drawn to people who activate old emotional patterns because the brain seeks resolution. It hopes, unconsciously, that this time the story will end differently. When a man shows consistent effort toward a woman, texting regularly, initiating plans, protecting her time, investing energy, it often indicates that she has activated not only his attraction system, but also his commitment system. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter linked to reward and motivation, increases when he anticipates interaction with her. Oxytocin, associated with bonding, rises through physical touch and emotional intimacy. If he prioritizes her, introduces her to friends and family, and integrates her into his future plans. This suggests that his prefrontal cortex has evaluated her as long-term compatible. He is not operating purely on impulse. He is integrating her into his identity. On the other hand, when a man avoids emotional depth, keeps communication inconsistent, or resists defining the relationship, it does not always mean he does not feel attraction. It may indicate internal conflict. He could be experiencing fear of vulnerability, fear of loss of independence, or unresolved trauma. Avoidant attachment patterns often show up as emotional distancing precisely when intimacy begins to deepen. The behavior may look like indifference, but internally it can be anxiety masked by withdrawal. The absence of effort is often as psychologically revealing as the presence of effort. Body language reveals a great deal about what the brain is deciding. When a man leans in, maintains eye contact, mirrors her gestures, and subconsciously adjusts his posture, this indicates engagement and attunement. Mirroring is a sign that the brain is trying to synchronize. If his pupils dilate, his voice tone softens, and he appears more animated, these are signs of emotional and physiological arousal. If, however, his body angles away, he checks his phone frequently, or his facial expressions remain flat, his brain may not be registering her as emotionally significant. Sometimes men override their lack of emotional resonance because of social pressure, status considerations, or physical attraction alone. But the body often exposes the truth. Decision-making patterns also reveal how a man's brain categorizes. A woman. If he invests in her growth, supports her ambitions, and feels proud of her success, it suggests he sees her as a partner. If he feels threatened by her achievements, attempts to control her independence, or subtly undermines her confidence, it may indicate insecurity. Insecure men may choose partners who appear dependent or less assertive, because this dynamic protects their fragile self-esteem. In such cases, the dream woman is not necessarily someone who inspires growth, but someone who maintains psychological comfort. Emotional responses provide further insight. When a man experiences jealousy in healthy doses, it can signal emotional investment. The brain perceives a potential threat to something valuable. However, extreme jealousy, possessiveness, or monitoring behaviors suggest fear of abandonment and low self-worth. Conversely, if a man feels nothing when she pulls away, cancels plans, or distances herself, it may mean he was never deeply attached to certain women because much of this process is subconscious. If a man grew up seeing a particular type of woman praised, perhaps nurturing, perhaps glamorous, perhaps submissive, his reward system may respond strongly to those traits. Cultural conditioning can merge with personal history to shape preference. But preferences are not fixed. The qualities he valued at 20 may not be the same qualities he values at 35. Emotional stability, kindness, shared purpose, and intellectual compatibility often become more important with age, because the prefrontal cortex becomes more dominant in decision-making. There is also the phenomenon of projection. Sometimes a man projects his unfulfilled desires onto a woman and labels her his dream woman. He may see in her the life he wishes he had, the discipline he lacks, the creativity he suppresses, the confidence he envies. In this case, attraction is partly about aspiration. He is drawn to qualities he wants to integrate into himself. But projection can distort reality. He may ignore incompatibilities because he is in love with the idea of her rather than the actual person. When a man does not approach a woman he clearly admires, this often indicates fear of rejection, social anxiety, or low self-efficacy. Brain calculates risk. The pain of potential rejection may feel greater than the reward of connection. This avoidance does not mean lack of interest. It can mean that his nervous system is overwhelmed. Conversely, when a man confidently initiates, handles rejection calmly, it reflects higher self-esteem and emotional regulation. Long-term consequences of chasing an unrealistic dream woman can be significant. If a man builds an idealized image that no real person can match, he may constantly feel dissatisfied. This leads to commitment issues, chronic comparison, and emotional restlessness. Social media intensifies this by presenting curated images of perfection. The brain begins to expect constant novelty and extreme stimulation, which reduces satisfaction. In stable, healthy relationships, dopamine becomes conditioned to fantasy rather than reality. This mindset can damage mental health. Constantly searching for perfection can create anxiety, fear of settling, and loneliness. It can also harm partners who feel they are competing with an invisible ideal. Over time, the man himself may experience regret, especially if he repeatedly leaves good relationships chasing a fantasy that never materializes. Unrealistic standards can also mask deeper fears of intimacy. By always finding flaws, he avoids vulnerability. Psychologists analyze these patterns by observing consistency between words and actions. They examine attachment history, childhood relationships, past romantic cycles, and emotional triggers. They look for repetition. Does he repeatedly choose emotionally unavailable partners? Does he equate drama with passion? They also assess cognitive distortions, such as black and white thinking or idealization and devaluation cycles. Emotional triggers are especially telling. If minor disagreements cause disproportionate anger or withdrawal, this suggests unresolved wounds. If compliments make him uncomfortable, it may indicate low self-worth. If he feels intense attraction only when there is uncertainty, his nervous system may be addicted to unpredictability. Therapists often explore early relational templates to uncover why certain traits feel magnetic. It is also important, too. A psychologically mature man shifts from asking who excites me the most to who aligns with my values, challenges me constructively, and brings peace to my life. Peace becomes more attractive than chaos. Depth becomes more appealing than surface. Emotional safety becomes more valuable than ego validation. When a man chooses wisely, his productivity, mental health, and overall well-being improve. Supportive relationships lower cortisol, reduce stress, and enhance focus. Emotional stability in a partner allows him to pursue goals without constant relational turbulence. But when he chooses based solely on ego, trauma patterns, or social pressure, the opposite occurs. Chronic stress, arguments, insecurity, and distraction can affect career performance, physical health, and self-esteem. In the end, how a man's brain picks his dream woman is a story of biology meeting psychology. It is an interplay of hormones, memories, beliefs, identity, and aspiration. The most powerful transformation happens when a man becomes aware of his own patterns. He stops chasing what is familiar but unhealthy, stops idealizing what does not truly fit. He begins to choose consciously rather than compulsively, and that is the real evolution. The dream woman is not found. She is recognized through clarity. When a man heals his wounds, strengthens his identity, and defines his values, his brain recalibrates. Attraction aligns with growth rather than fear. Love becomes less about filling a void and more about building a shared future. In that state, the dream is no longer fantasy, becomes partnership rooted in awareness, mutual respect, and emotional intelligence.